Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, also. So my name is Vivek Lokhande, and I work as a software engineer at GeekyAnts. I like to read code and study about health optimization in my free time, but that's a topic for later. So yeah, let's get into this. Why this talk? So I was scrolling Twitter and I saw this tweet by some person when he was saying that like about control forms and uncontrolled forms and immutability with the state and when you're using forms, it causes a lot of re-rendering. And Dan Abramo commented, he he said that actually we are moving to uncontrolled forms in the future, and that's what like the new documentation is also representing. And I use remix in my side project, so I thought like the mental model of remix forms quite actually aligns well with the uncontrolled forms. So I thought like I'll compare these forms, and then I created one repo, and I like wrote different code for everything, and then I maybe thought like let's give a talk on this as well. So let's see the order of topics here. So we'll be going through what are forms. I'm sure you guys might be knowing it, but still we'll go through it. I want everyone to understand the part in the end. So and then we'll be looking at how did forms evolve. There will be talking about React, and in the end we have the remix forms. Yeah, that is what will be the crux of the talk at the end. And okay, so let's see like what are forms. Let's see that first. Hmm. Okay. Okay. So what are forms? So forms are like anchor tags. They are a navigation event. So if you've seen anchor tags, you give an href, you click on an href, you are redirected to a new page. Whatever on the new page, all the get requests get fired. The page is hydrated. And what is a form? So form is a navigation event which is similar to an anchor tag. And what's great is like you can pass some data and you can ask the user to put some data while firing this event. So like that is the definition of forms what the remix team has came up with, and this is one of the definitions by Ryan Florence. So yeah, okay. So now we'll be looking at a simple multi-page app form. So it is a very normal HTML form we'll be looking at. There is nothing special in this, but I want you to understand how this works, so that in the end it is very easy for you to understand the mental model of remix forms. So let's see. So here I have an HTML template wherein I'm typing something. So I've created a template which is I've like fired up a Node.js server, and everything is coming from the backend. So the front end is only used for showing the HTML code and the CSS, and the JavaScript, everything is on the backend. So that is what is happening here. And let's see like what I'm typing out here. So I'm typing some title, I'm typing some description, I'll also type out some content, and I'll submit the form. And what we'll see is like uh, I've made the request as slow 3G like the network, so you'll be able to see what is happening requests. So let's see that first. So I click on submit, and yeah, so what do we see here? So the first request which was sent to the server is responding to the first request, whatever we have sent the data, and the status is 302. So the server responds to the status of 302, which means like we'll be redirected to a new page. And we have sent the redirection URL from the server. So we are redirecting to the same page, which will cause a refresh of the page. And we know that like whenever a refresh is caused for the page, the DOM is like repopulated with all the data, and even the GET requests are fired. So the GET request gets fired for the data, and now we can see like we have more than one item in the list. So Like I mean, like I didn't have to do anything. I just wrote a form, I submitted it, and the state was hydrated, you can say. Like I didn't have to do anything at all. So like this is a beautiful approach which they had in the early days, is what I think. And but we didn't have a lot of things which we'll discuss ahead. So let's just go through like what happened here. So first we got like we sent a post request, we got a 302 response from the server, and the 302 response triggered a refresh of the page, and the refresh of the page triggered the get requests, and that's how the list items were shown on the page. And yeah, that is how like it worked, how it worked. So again, I have one diagram which is depicting the same thing. The user submits the form, we have some UI feedback, we are hitting a route, and once we hit a route, some data mutation is happening on the back end. We are adding the to do or the block to the database. The database, again, we are sending the response from the server to the client, and that is the 302 response. That is what I've written it as a redirect response. And again, because of the 302, we are causing the refresh, and the routing is happening. Again, like we are hitting all the get APIs, and again we are fetching the data from the database, and that's how like we are getting the template from the backend, and that is how we are rendering it on the front end. So I hope like I explained it a lot of times so that it becomes very clear, so that whatever comes ahead, like you will be easily able to grasp it, and you'll not be able to be confused at all. So yeah, that is why I've like told it several times. Okay. So what is a good form? So there are a lot of things which you would require in a form, which would make it like a very good form. But some of the things like what people usually look for are the like we will generally look for what are validations on the client and the validations on the server, and we'll also look at pending UI. We'll also look at optimistic UI. We'll also look at like focus on label click, that like that is easy, so that can be done in any of the forms. You just need to pass a name and ID to the label and the input, so that is easy. And focusing on errors, so that is also one thing, and which you would like to be like to have in a good form. So what do we have next? Like this is the thing uh, like we all might be familiar with, that is the React form. So React form, what are we doing in a React form? We add state to each of the inputs, and we'll just enter the data, and we click on create post. We send, we have a different front end, we have a different back end. We are hitting an API, the API will respond with something. If it is a post request, we'll get some data, and then we'll mutate the state. If it is an optimistic UI, we will just mutate the state before sending the request, and then we'll validate it again. So we are looking at a lot of re-rendering here in the React form, and that is how it stands as of now. And like there are some cool libraries such as React Hook Form, which are also promoting uncontrolled forms. So you will significantly reduce the re-render amount. And but the pending state and the optimistic UI, you still have to do it by yourselves. And uh, like that is the thing. Like the like even then, like you have to use the state, and like there's nothing wrong with using the state, but I'm just like there's a different approach as well to do this thing. So we'll just see like what is happening here. So I create this form, and I add a title, add a description, add some content. I click on create post, and what I've added here is some optimistic UI. So before the UI is validated, the task is getting the blog is getting added already, and then we are validating it on the backend and all. So that is happening. But since the laptop is freezing so much, I don't know if you are able to see this. So even then, like you will be able to see what we are doing. Like what we are getting is just a 200 response. So we are sending some data over the wire. We need to create the form data, of course, in React, and that we send over the wire to the server. The server responds with the 200, and then we need to mutate the state again. So there's a lot of things like which we have to do manually, like creating the form data, which the browser did it by itself when we are using an MPA. Also, uh, mutating the state again and again and causing a lot of retenders. So that is a thing like that happens in React. So again, I'll explain. Yeah, so this just represents like we got a 200 response for our post request, and I'll show you the flow as well. So user submits the form. We show some if we show some pending state or optimistic UI, and if it is an optimistic UI, we'll do some data mutation in the state already, and then we'll send a like caller out. And then when once you call the route, we can see some data mutation happening on the server. The server will add the block to the database. It will respond again with status 200, and then once we get this, we are using maybe use effect to check like once the request is completed, we want to change the state. And once we want to change the state, like once we change the state, it will re-render the page, will the component will re-render. And yeah, that is how it would work on a normal React form, that is. So yeah, this is the flow of a React form. And like we got a lot of things. Okay, like we have some beautiful things such as pending state, optimistic UI, error validation, and a lot of these things. But there is a lot of re-rendering, and there's a lot of manual work like creating the form data and all. So yeah, that is there. So like now what we'll be moving on to our React forms. So this is the mental model which I'm talking about. And yeah, so let's see why is this beautiful, or I would say great. So again, the same thing. We are entering some title, we are entering some description, and we are entering some content here. Again, I have a repo with me, so like the repo link I'll be sharing with you guys, so you can even go and check the code out, and you can see like what all we are doing for this thing. So yeah, so if you check this thing, what is happening here is we are sending some data over the wire again, and you can see that we have got a 204 response from the server, and we also have a request which is made to the server again, and that request is a get call, and it says status 200, and that is how like we are showing the data on the left side here. So yeah, so yeah, what did we do, and like what was actually happening? So let's see. So what Remix does is like if you are I think most of you guys must be familiar with Next.js and app directory. So we have something similar in Remix. We have a routes directory, and inside routes directory you just need to create the the URL which you want the user to go to. So I just created a posts.tsx route, and by default, if I'm not giving any route on submit, I'll be hitting the same route on the post request or even on the get request. So yeah, so what is happening next? Okay, so while we send the data, we also on the wire we get a hook from Remix called as use transition. So the use transition hook just tells us about the different states of the data, like where is it at, like are we submitting the form, or are we saving it, or are we loading it. And once it is saved, we can show saved, and then again we can show the default text, that is create post. So yeah, that is one thing. And yeah, so let's see like what actually happened when I posted the when I okay let's see this, yeah, when I posted the data to the server. So I created a very normal form. We have a form API from Remix. I just created some inputs, and then I added it, like added the data, clicked on submit, and the request was actually intercepted on the same URL, and I validated the data on the server. So the action function which Remix provides, that actually runs on the server, and that I just validated the data here, and I just checked if you have any issues, like if you have any error, I'm just returning the error, or then I'm like accessing the database, creating the post and redirecting uh, back. So yeah, and on the client I just have to use this hook, use action data. So it's again very declarative, and it's very easy to use, and like you haven't yet seen the state in action at all. So yeah, so that is what is happening. And we all the form is uncontrolled, and I am using React form for the front end validation, but we can also validate over the back end and send the errors. So yeah, so that is what Remix provides out of the box. And once like we get the redirect request, so if you see here, this is very similar to what we are doing in the MPAs. The redirect request, I'm sending the URL where I need to the user to be redirected, and once I get the URL, the get calls are fired, because in MPAs, as we have seen, there is a refresh which is being done on the client, but Remix here doesn't do a refresh. It just fires another hook called as use loader data, and use loader data just fetches some data for you, like whatever is in the database. On the same route you will get the data, and you will just render it on the front end. So, and the great part is like you don't even need JavaScript for it. So even if you disable JavaScript on the browser, you will be able to do this. So that is some crazy thing, like what I've done. So yeah, so what did happen? We use the use action data, and the action loader, so the action function on the server. We sent the request, and what we've got is a 204 or a 302 request, which we'll be getting from the server, and that will be triggering a get call, because these both are for reloading the page or redirecting to a new page. So what will happen is automatically we'll be firing a get call, and we'll be getting all the data. And yeah, so this is the flow, like what would be happening. So user submits the form, we'll see some UI feedback, and the routing will happen on the routing will happen uh, on the server as well as the client, because we are writing the code on the client, but actually we are accessing a database. So we hit the same route slash posts, and we get, like we post the data, we add it to the database, and the database, like we just respond with a 302 from the server, and the server then once we've got it on the front end, we just like have a refresh, because we are getting a 302 response from the server, and because we are getting a 302, we are refreshing the data, and that's how we are getting the data inside of the use loader data hook, and that's how we are showing it on the front end. So let's see, like I think this is pretty great, like what they've done with this, and what we've got here, the benefits of what you say the remix form would be, like you have a better mental model, like similar to the MPS. It is very clean, it is very beautiful, it is very easy to understand. It actually works without JS. Like if you have disabled JS, if your client has not yet downloaded the JavaScript chunk, you will be able to still go ahead with the form. It will not cause any issues, and yeah, it doesn't require any state. So you'll be saved of a lot of re-rendering. Yeah. So yeah, that these are the benefits of having and using remix forms. Okay, so these are some resources. I can share it with you guys on chat. And thank you for attending this talk. It was great talking regarding this topic. Yeah, so thank you.